Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Hanging with Hobo live. And let me mute this telephone before it drives us nuts. Mute. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Hope you've had a good week. It's been an interesting week for me, to say the least. We're going to go over a few things tonight. I've sent if you have purchased the sled, the larger version of the sled that I said was a wall hanger, and I used in the centerpiece of that, or as a centerpiece in the Christmas wreath. I sent out an email earlier today or this evening with an amended, a corrected file. I received notification yesterday or today. Yeah, I don't know. This week has been rough. But there was an issue with the file that needed to be corrected, and it was brought to my attention, and I got that corrected. And once I've made all those corrections, I sent that person the correct file, and I emailed everyone who's downloaded it in the past. And there's been quite a few, and no one said anything about having any issues, which was kind of weird. In fact, I even received some emails back about, hey, this looks identical. I don't see any problems. So I don't know where or how this came to be. I have suspicions, and I'm pretty sure that the artifacts that were remaining, and I'm going to show you guys here, because even if you didn't download this file, these are things that you need to be aware of and look for, because I think these are artifacts that were remnants of me using the scissor tool. Now, and if you recall, I'm pretty sure I did that a demonstration of that design and tried using the scissor tool, and it didn't work quite. It worked as it was designed. I just didn't know how to use it. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I created these artifacts. And there's probably a few of you out there who are still in the same boat, hadn't quite grasped that scissor tool yet, or you haven't played with it, or you don't have that version yet, whatever. But, some things to look for. We're going to look at that in a second. We're going to talk about this. Where is it? There, that new design there. In fact, I'm going to design that one for you tonight, show you how simple this is to do, talk about the inspiration for it, where it came from, and how I determined what that size is going to be. And I've got another piece right here I'm going to show you on a new design from the same concept, but I learned some stuff tonight before going live, because I was working on that one minutes before going live. And if things would have gone to plan, or as planned, I would actually had a second version, two of them side by side, to show you. But I ran into some issues with this, and I want you to see this, because first time I've run into it. So some of you may have seen it, but I haven't experienced this yet. And it was like, wow. Okay. So let me get over here to the comments. I hope everybody is doing well. A lot of you guys showed up early tonight, and I appreciate y'all being here. I did see, I put in the comments earlier asking if Richard received the crystal heart, and I did see his comments that he did get it. So good to see, good to hear. And first, let's look at the issues with the sled design, to show you that real quick and get that out of the way. Some of you, like I said, some people have contacted me and said, hey, we don't see any problems with it. Well, you wouldn't see these problems unless you went to resize the slots and tabs and paid attention to the warnings from the tool on the slots and tabs tool. So I got that screen on, I got that screen on, and we'll switch. There we go. Oh, too many times. It was hesitating there. Oh, because I got it on a long delay. We don't want y'all to stare that long. Let's go here and here. There we go. All right. So if you grabbed all of this, and right now it looks, there's some items that are grouped and some items that are not. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I opened this up just like it was when you downloaded it. If I ungroup everything, because that would be one of the first things you'd want to do whenever you're going to reuse the slots and tabs, because when items are part of a group, the resize slots and tabs tool will not recognize grouped items. So now everything's ungrouped. And if I go up here to tools and resize slots and selection, immediately right here in this screen is where you should look for any warnings or issues. And it tells you there's two things here. Shapes are not in pass, shapes that are not pass or rectangles, and shapes that are not closed. Now, this first one is a non-issue because it's referring to all the text and stuff up here. In fact, this piece doesn't have slots and tabs, so I'm going to grab just those, go back to the same tool, see what messages we get, and that eliminated the first one. Now it's just telling me we've got shapes that are not closed. And there was where the problem was at, was with this file. But I noticed there was some other things popping up. And if I zoom in here, there's these two little artifacts right there, little strange pieces. I don't know why or where they're at or where they came from, but I suspect they are a result of using the scissor tool earlier, earlier in the design process. And there are some more over here. And I'm going to show you what I did to find these and identify the open shapes. Cancel. In fact, when you get, normally this is not an issue with my files, but I'm not a perfect man. I try to make perfect files. I try to make files without issues or flaws and guarantee them to work in Lightburn. In fact, as soon as I got this email and identified these, I acknowledged the issue, fixed them, refunded the purchase of the person who brought it to my attention, and sent out the amended files to everybody. And usually what I say to do when you get files that have open shapes, just simply do a 0 offset of the entire thing. Don't even waste any time trying to identify where they're at, because if there's a whole bunch of shapes, and right now I'm looking at this file, it says there's 58 objects in this pattern. So instead of trying to go around and search for which one of the 58 objects are an open path, I'm going to simply do a 0 offset right now and see if that takes care of it. So back over here, I've got all of these objects selected. I'm just going to go over to my offset tool and tell it to do a 0 offset and delete the original objects and say okay. Now those are selected, but it's put them back in as a group because I had that option turned on in the offset tool. So I'm going to ungroup it all again. Now I'm going to right back into tools and resize slots and selection. See, that warning is gone. So doing that 0 offset will take care of the open paths situation. Now, I want to identify all those loose pieces. So I'm going to say cancel, get rid of that. And I'm going to try and select. I know they were right in here. I'm just going to draw a rectangle around. And there, I got one of them. I'm going to delete that. And there was another one somewhere else. I don't want to get that. If I get, it doesn't matter. Just don't select it. Okay, don't want that. Don't know where that got to. I'll look at it again the same way I did, but I noticed there was something up here. Oh, wow. And it cleaned those up too. Now, I didn't do this when I was looking for the problems because I wanted to identify where the problems were at. And I want to show you this because I think these were a result of the scissor tool. So I'm going to undo what I just did. In fact, there were 2 items in there, and when I did that 0 offset, there we go. Now let's get that back over here. And yeah. All right. See here, there's a straight line right there. That little bitty straight line, that is a remnant of a piece that was left after using the scissor tool. And that straight line, you can't hardly see that. It's minuscule. In fact, what does the measurement say? It's 0.7 millimeters, right at 0.8 millimeters long. And there's another one over here. And these little pieces here. So, and there was one down here, little bitty thing. And I think those are artifacts left over from the scissor tool. So I found those, deleted that, and zoomed in tight and selected that one and got rid of it. But when I did the zero offset just then, I didn't know that, but it actually found those anomalies and got rid of those too. It didn't get rid of that one piece over here, but it's gone now. So zero offset not only will close your paths, not always, most of the time, but it even cleans up some of those little bitty artifacts that are just trash and in the way and don't need to be there. So that was identified in the file. It was cleaned up. It's been corrected on the website. So anybody that downloads it going forward will not have those issues. If you've already downloaded it, you've already received in your inbox the amended and corrected file with all those taken care of. So I wanted you guys to see that. And now let's see here. Question right out of the gate here from Jeff. Jeff, the shirts have been ordered. I talked to my screen printer. This week's been tough. I don't know if it was this week I talked to him the first of the week, or if it was Wednesday last week. I don't know. But they've been ordered. In fact, I'll show you the pattern or the design I went with. Let's turn off Jeff's comment and we'll get rid of this. And the new artwork for the Hobo Nation t-shirt, t-shirts, open, there we go, and put that in the middle. And switch. So that's going to be the t-shirts, the Hobo Nation Laserologist. So you can advertise in that great big scientific term there that you are a laserologist and you're part of the Hobo Nation. But the shirts have been ordered, and he assured me that he would have them ready for me before Christmas. My goal was to have them all out and in the mail to everyone before Christmas. But they'll go out in December. I don't know if you will receive them in time before Christmas, but they'll go out within the next couple of weeks for everyone who sent me their information. Let's see here. Yeah, no snail mail here. It was just I'm waiting. I had to. God love you. Not everybody followed directions. I had to send out follow-up emails to about a half a dozen people who would just say, hey, yeah, I need my shirt. And I'm like, okay, well, what size and where does it need to go to? And they'd send me their size. I'm like, okay, now I got your size. Now where does it need to go? So I tried to get all, the sizes what I needed to have now so I could get the right t-shirts in and printed. But the wheels are turning. Wheels of progress are in motion. And I'm going to mark this spot. So I received an email this week, I don't even know if it was. I ain't going to go into a whole lot with you, but this week's been a little rough for me. I had to go to a funeral Sunday, first of this week. My right-hand man, the guy I used to run my business with, that I could not have possibly survived without, I should say, his father passed away. And I had to go to didn't have to. I had the privilege of attending their services. And his dad wasn't that old. I found out his dad was only 77 years old, which turns out to be the same age as my dad. And those of you know, I've got some of my own issues there, but it's just a rough week starting out. And I was struggling to find inspiration and figure out what to do. And the more I flustered and floundered and struggled with trying to figure out what am I going to do Saturday? What's going on this week? I received, I think Dale might have been Dale. I can't remember. I was working on a design for him, and that one just kicked my butt. But I got another email about some, I think from Robert, that said he is needing some inspiration on some centerpieces, and he had done some Christmas idea on a nativity thing, and I'm like, okay. And he plans to give them away at this event, and I'm like, okay. And based on the fact, and here's the one I was working on. Let me grab it. Oh no. Oop, make a mess. And the reason it kicked my butt is because it's a lot of pieces, and it's an so I was working on a large 3-dimensional nativity scene, and I've got a new idea for the top. Instead of doing your regular living hinge, and this is what held me up, I hit a roadblock. Let me get this in here, if it will. Okay, I ain't gonna try to do it. It's not glued up. But I've got a solid piece here that I can bend, and this one is now it's kind of dried up. But what I did, if you've ever seen any of the sheetrock workers, when they try to make an arch with sheetrock, they can do it out of a solid piece of sheetrock by scoring the back side of that sheetrock about halfway through and make some V cuts in it so that it can flex and bend and keep the other side intact. And that's what I was doing here. This side, I didn't cut all the way through. I just cut halfway through the material, and it's not focusing very well. And then with some steam and some heat, I was able to get this to flex and twist and take the correct arch, and I could have glued that into place, and that would have been a really cool, a much more finished looking piece than having, and living hinges aren't unattractive. They have their own look, but I thought this would be a better look or a cleaner look. And so I'm still working on it, but I had to put that one on the back burner. So whenever I got his email about doing the centerpieces, and he had a nativity thing he was working on, I'm like, this one's whooped my butt, and you got to do a dozen or more of these, and it's something you want to give away. Simple. I've said it many times. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. So I'm like, okay, well, what can you do? What can you do? And then, I'm like, okay, well, and that's when I was just really flustered about everything going on. And after I talked with, I think it might have been just before I spoke with Craig, I was worked out something that helped him out a little bit, but it's either just before or just after Craig. I can't remember, but I just heard, be still. Be still. Quit trying to force it. Be still. And this come to me. And I said, okay, this is kind of neat, and it would be simple, and it would be an attractive centerpiece. And I did this one double-sided, so it looks good from either side of the table you're sitting at. And you can put anything you want to in here, any kind of message you wanted. It could be Christmas-oriented, or it could be Valentine's. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be something for your granddaughter, just something. And I had a whole bunch of maple here that I was like, I didn't know what to do with it. It was award plaques, and they were 5 by 7 in dimension. In fact, I reluctantly show you this because this is, so I'm going to show you this, but it was there's a solid 5 by 7 plaque of solid maple, but I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And I said, you know what? I'll use that maple to make these and figure out how to get my maximize the use of my material, waste nothing, and make those as big as I can and as nice as I can. And by having that set up to where and save the file, I can change the message to whatever I need it to be. But for this week, be still worked for me better than anything. So I said, all right, this is going to work out nice. This would be a good suggestion for Robert. I've shared it with him. Robert, if you haven't got it, I already sent it to you in email. I was going to send it to you yesterday, but it's just been a rough week. But we're going to do this design tonight because it's, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it pretty darn quickly. And then for some of you, they're going, yeah, well, that's cool. It looks nice, but I want something. I'm going to show you a variation of this file. I'm going to have this one. I'll have both files on the website. Hopefully before end of day tomorrow. It's just didn't get around to it this week. Just could not get all the gears going to this week. But this is so simple. This one, if you stay with me in this live stream, you're going to be able to design this and use your own materials, whatever you got, and not have to worry about buying anything. So let's see here. Back up in my comments. Jim, I missed the shirt offer. Can I still get in on it? Not on the one that's over right now. I just finished up, Jim, what that was, YouTube had a promotion going on that they were encouraging me to turn on memberships on YouTube. They wanted people to sign up and, sponsor me, help me out, donate money to me through YouTube. And YouTube kept a percentage of that donation. They kept 20% of it, which is high. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not turning that on. And once I got that and turned it off, I got another follow-up from them that says, hey, turn it on and we'll send you $2,000. I'm like, what? I read the fine print. Simply by turning on the memberships, they give me $1,000. And then for up to 10 members, 10 or no, I think it was $10 for every 100 people that signed up. That's what it was. For every up to 100 people, they would send me another $10. So that's another potential $1,000. And I was completely candid with everybody when this came forward and said, hey, look, if we want to do this and you want to do that, I said, you sign up for 3 months and I will send you a t-shirt. So you get a t-shirt for your money for doing the sponsorship. And I won't, because at $30 and I'm keeping 20% of it, I got like $24 out of that $30. So that covers the cost of the t-shirt and the shipping and wherever it needed to go in the United States or in the world, because these are going everywhere. And as soon as that promotion was over, and because it was they only did it for the first 60 or 90 days, I shut that off. You can't even sign up as a membership on YouTube anymore, because that was highway robbery. They were taking advantage of the creators, in my opinion. At 20%, they're greedy. So, but I will have more of them for sale, and I've got my regular t-shirts for sale too, that are going to sell for $24 plus the shipping, probably $30 total if you wanted to buy one. But right now, the free one offer is over on that. And technically they weren't free, because people recognized they were spending $30 and I would send them a t-shirt. They bought a t-shirt. Steve, engraved beams and slats on the top side of it look like oh yeah, on the outside of this piece. But because it's an arch, and I don't know, maybe they would have had, but all the depictions of nativity you see them is just an old little, but yeah, that could work.
Hello, everyone. If you're not a patron, consider it. Steve works very hard to do this for us, and you will not find a better deal. Well, thank you for that endorsement, Craig. And let's see here. Mark this. All right, now got that marked. I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm going to jump over here to Lightburn, and we're going to design this. And I'm going to do it in real time with not explaining myself to you, and then I'll explain everything. But because people intimidated by Lightburn, you don't need to be. Undo button is your best friend in the world, and you can do so many things in Lightburn. It's just having the vision, seeing the project, and that's what I struggled with this week. But it was provided. All right, so delete that, close that, and open that. And I got that marked. Good. Now we're going to switch over to Lightburn, and I'm going to design this. And I'll tell you briefly what I'm doing. Auto. All right. So like I said, I had a 5x7 piece of maple. So I drew out a rectangle 5x7. And I said, okay, these are my constraints. I got to work within this. I was close. 5x7. Put that on a toolpath. And I'm going to put it down here in the corner just because. All right. And so, all right, there was my constraints. I need to design everything within this, and I want to use as much of this as possible. I'm going to do an offset. I'm going to do an inward offset, and I'm in inches. Let's go back to millimeters. I'm going to do an offset of 2 millimeters inward. Do not delete the original, and that way it gives me a 2 millimeter buffer around my perimeter, so I don't have to worry about issues with material. Now that is 123 millimeters wide, so I'm going to draw out a circle, perfect circle, and I'm going to tell it to be 123 millimeters wide or in diameter. And actually, I didn't have my aspect ratio locked. There we go. Now I'm going to center that and put it at the top. And there we go. And now I'm going to, that's going to be my outer perimeter. So I'm going to do another offset of that. I'm working with 6 millimeter wood. So I want that to be about 6 millimeters also. Say okay. Do another offset of that. And this one I'm going to do at 3 millimeters. Say okay. Now I'm going to come down here. I'm going to draw me a rectangle. And I'm going to tell it to be 25 millimeters by 6 millimeters. And for y'all who are going, wait a minute, why, what, how, what? I won't explain all that, but I'm just going to show you real quick how easy this went together for me. All right, so that was 6 millimeters or 25 millimeters. I duplicated it. I moved it over, and I have my spacing moved at 25 millimeters. So it's moved over the exact same distance as it is long. So those are equally spaced apart. So now I'm going to group those, and so they don't get moved away from each other. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in the center of this piece right there. Now I'm going to, I need to make a base. So if it's 6 millimeters wide, I'm going to draw out a rectangle. Not sure about the dimensions yet because I got to figure it out. How wide is this one right here? This toolpath is 123 wide. So I'm going to say 123 wide. Go ahead and put it in the center and put it at the bottom. And then I'm going to change my anchor point to the bottom center. And now I'm going to say, how high does it need to be? The height. I'm going to say, all right, so the material is 6 millimeters wide, and I want 3 times the thickness of the width of the material on either side is 18. 18 is 36 plus
6 is 42 millimeters. So with that anchored at the bottom, I'm going to tell it 42 millimeters. That puts it there. Now I'm going to select this pair right here, hold my shift button, select this rectangle and tell it to go to center. And now those are centered up there. And now if that's 42 millimeters, how high is this rectangle? This rectangle is 173.8. That seems kind of funky that it's an oddball number like that, but we'll leave it right there. We'll say 173.8. And I'm going to say, I'm going to change my anchor point back to the top, and I want to change my height to 173.8, subtract 42. Okay. And now that's going to have that rectangle taking up that amount of space. This is the base. And I've used every bit of that work area except for the 2 millimeters around the outer perimeter. Now I want to create this have this radius of this circle. There's always more than one way to do this, but I've been really enjoying learning to work with the ruler and all of those information, all the information that's in the ruler. It's not just a measuring tape. There's so much information in there. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to look at my ruler and take a look here, and that's telling me that it's an arc. Oh, I can't go over it with that, but there it says arc radius is 61.5. So I can say, okay, I'm going to do, and there it is. I've already got it in 61.5. So I'm just going to come up here to this and say, put a radius there and there. And then I can select just that circle that I created initially, delete it. And that quick, I have the pattern for that design. Now that's going to stay on the toolpath. So I'm going to select all of that, deselect the outer piece, put everything on a cut path. And in fact, I'm even going to put these on a different path. I'm going to put them there. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put tabs on here. That's okay. I forgot to put my tabs on. So I'm going to come back up here to this. I've got my anchor point there. And actually, because I screwed this up, if I change the height of this, it's going to adversely affect the arcs, the radiuses I just put on there. In fact, I'll show you what happens and why in Lightburn, priority is everything. Or even when you're designing. But whenever you want to do your Boolean tools, you want to select this one versus this one first to get the results you want to do. And priority matters. And so I'll show you right now. If you look, this radius matches that radius. It's a good mirror image. But if I've got my anchor point at the top of this and I tell it I want to change the height by less 3 millimeters, did you notice that radius changed? In fact, I'll exaggerate it. Let's undo and let's do that less 10 millimeters. So you can really see that. You see how that jumped up and changes that? So now, you know, a fast runner may never see it, but I see it. It's glaring. So what you have to do, if you realize you made that error, go back to before you did the radius like there, and I've got just that piece there, that one rectangle. Anchor points at the top, and I'm going to reduce it by 3 more millimeters. Oh, not 300. And now I'm going to select those two. I'm going to duplicate them. I'm going to arrow them up to there. I ain't going to worry about putting those in position. I'm just going to get them right there where they overlap it. And I'm going to hold my shift key, select that, and weld them together. And then go into my tools and resize slots and selection. I didn't bother measuring those. I'm just going to change my tab height. Well, there, it's picking them up. It was close enough. But if it don't pick them up, you may have to change your old material thickness till you get within a tolerance area that picks them up. I'm going to change that 3 millimeters and apply. And now those tabs fill that 3 millimeter void up. I didn't have to worry about getting them in the exact position. Didn't have to worry about if they were overlapping or not. Now I've got that. Go to my radius tool. It's a 61.5 radius there and there. Oop, didn't get it there. Go back to your selector tool, select that beginning toolpath, and now That's going to go not that or that. Those are on the red path, and I'm putting these on the black path. Now, I've got 2 tabs, and I've got these set up as engravings, not as cutouts. And why did I do that? Because I did something different here. Because this is solid maple, it's a hardwood. It's not plywood or MDF. And I didn't mind the contrast of the caramelized edges around the cutouts because that kind of complemented the engraving. But I didn't want to have even though it's on the bottom and you're not going to see it, I wanted to have a nice finished base without having the slots and tabs sticking out the bottom of it. So if someone picked it up and they're eyeballing it and checking it out, it's solid wood. It has a better finished appearance to it. So to achieve that, what I did was testing, and I found out how many passes it was going to take at what speeds and powers to engrave a pocket like I was going to do an inlay, so that it was at least 3 millimeters deep, and my tabs are only 3 millimeters. So now I've got pockets that will receive those tabs, fill those pockets with a glue, a little bit of glue on either side, put it together, clamp it together. 45 minutes later, Bob's your uncle. You got a nice finished piece. So that's how that design came to be, was just trying to maximize every bit of that material and have no waste. And I'm going to go back over this and show you how and why, what sizes, why I used what sizes I did and how I did it. But I'm trying to make this a very informative and useful video live stream this week, but not be here for all night. But tonight, when I was trying to do a twist on this design, a new design using this same concept, I actually went through 2 pieces of my 5x7 maple. The first one just didn't work at all. It gave me so much problem. I'm like, okay, my brain wasn't 100% in the right area, and I screwed up some things that were my fault. But it wasn't all my fault, because I got this second piece here, and this is what I'm doing. It's going to be a heart in the shape, instead of a circle, it's going to be heart shaped. It says love. And this is the bottom base. And the way that I did the double-sided in images, initially do the burn, do the engrave, put my mark on it, then flip the material over and put it right back in the same position on the Rolly Lasermatic MK2 XW, and engrave it again, and then cut it all out. Well, because of time constraints, I decided to make this one single-sided. But it did the engraving beautiful. And see how dark and black that is? Squirrel tangent. A lot of people went, how do I get a really dark black engraving? Slow your laser down. Slow it down and reduce the power. And in order to find what really looked good for this, how dark and black that is, there was no prep work done to it or anything like that. It was just slowing there's no borax or none of that stuff, nothing to just slow it down. And this was done on this particular maple. It was 600 millimeters a minute at 15% power. And it's a fairly, and I haven't sanded this or prepped it or anything. This is straight off the laser. A little bit of sanding and it cleans up and it looks really even better because there's a little bit of residue around it. But in order to know what's going to work for you, you've got to test your material, folks. And when you download my files from hobowithwood.com, there will be settings with those files, but it's not the settings that necessarily I recommend that you use, because if you downloaded this, if I had it up right now on hobowithwood.com and you downloaded it, you'd have my settings for this maple. Well, if you don't have this maple, then they're irrelevant. And even if you did, different environmental situations can cause different results. Guys, you got to test. And I know that a lot of you get your lasers and you're ready to start making stuff. You got a long way to go before you can really start putting stuff together and creating, because you got to get familiar with your tool. You got to get to know it. You got to, you got to court this thing. You got to, become familiar with it. And even once you do, this is what I was going to show you. I've already made and sold a bunch of these this week. And I tried to make this new design tonight. And just so you see, I'm not kidding you. Here was my first attempt. I got it all cut out, and that one I did double-sided. But here's the issue I ran into. This thing, it didn't want to cut out. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to cut. Cut out half of it, but it wouldn't cut out the other half. And I got to looking, and if it can, even out of focus, even terribly out of focus, you can see how much skinnier this side is than this side. And focus you up here a little bit. Oh, wrong way, Conway. There we go. And the difference is, you see that seam that runs right down the middle? It's all maple, but it's two pieces of maple that's been glued together. And one piece of that maple is so much more dense, the laser would not cut through it. And I had to go over it and over it and over it. And finally, I ended up switching from the 10 watt to the 30 watt, try and cut through it even more. And even that wouldn't get through it. I got black all over me. It just burnt the wood up. And you can see how much thinner this side is, because it just burnt that side away completely. And then when I went to cut this one out, he said this side, or no, here, this side cut through no problem. But you can see that seam again. This side would not cut through. This side cut through with 7 passes at 10 watts. 10 watts and 100% power at 420 millimeters a minute. Cut completely through. This side had no evidence of a cut on it at all. It was perfectly split where those two pieces of wood went together. And I was like, wow, okay. So I just ran it again. Another 7 passes, still nothing. Another 7 passes, still nothing. So this was about 28 passes now, and it's just now starting to look like that. So I'm not going to waste much more time with this. In fact, let's see if I can force that. I can probably get that to come apart and clean it up and save it. But I'm not going to force it right now. So you got to test. In fact, that's what when I put this material on the laser bed to find out what I needed to do, that's what I did. I went right up here in this top corner, and you can see there's a little semicircle cut out of there. You can see it. I did a test cut to find out what it was going to cut. Well, that's what I needed to cut this side. I didn't test this side because I didn't think I would have the same problem again. I've already made several of those, and I had not run into this issue. But I run into this issue tonight, twice. So now when I'm working with this maple, I know I need to do a test cut here and do a test cut on this piece and see if I'm going to have the same results or not. I see some questions, and let's see here. All right, there we go. Wow. Edward, I don't know that Leo's doing anything for Black Friday, and I don't feel like he needs to, because from the very first time that I met Leo, and I'm talking with him in a private chat, I told him that I felt like his product was extremely undervalued. He had his prices were way too cheap, because the quality of the product is unlike none that I've ever seen. The Rolly Lasermatic is precision on precision on precision. It's and this is an example. I picked this piece of material up
4 different times off of the laser bed and inspected it, picked it up, flipped it over, checked it out, and then positioned it. Not using any hold downs, just using the corner of the honeycomb as its positioning orientation point. Picked it up, inspected it, put it right back down on there, hit the button, picked it up, inspected it, right back down. I could have never done that with my ComGrow or with my X-Tool or with anything else. Nothing else had the same repeatability that this machine has got. But he said, he heard what I said, appreciated what I said, but he's like, but he still needed to be competitive within the diode hobbyist market. So he said, then like I said, this was in their infancy. So he's like, yeah, no, I got to be competitive. I want to bring them a fair product, the end user, a great product at a fair price. So if he does anything, I would be shocked because they're entirely too cheap as it is. Anybody that's got a laser, a Rolly, who have struggled with other lasers in the past will attest to that being the honest to God truth. This machine is worth every penny, and you should not hesitate to pull the trigger and buy one. And if you do, since we're talking about it, if you do, well, here, I'll show you both of them. There's the 2 links. If you're going to buy you a Rolly, hobowithwood.com/Rolly. And then I've also got the link for the kiosk there too. Back to comments. How do you hang it? How do you? Oh, thank you, Craig. I was thinking, how do you hang what? Oh yeah, how do you hang that? That's going to be part of the design. I'm going to go into in depth here, and that's I use jump rings. I use a jump ring to hang that in there, and you see the little jump ring there suspended. And that's a little bit tricky, but I found a really good shortcut on how to do that. And we're going to talk about all that in just a second too. And we'll get to the end of these questions, and we're going to go back into that design and talk about how I did what I did, the math that I used, why I used what math I did, and the positioning of the holes, and how to make your own jump rings. Armstead, hey, a big +1 not realize you can make deep pocket. Oh, okay. Did not. Yeah, man. I've got some really look on my channel and search. Not now. Stay here, but search some of my videos for inlays. Man, I was enjoying doing inlays, and you can use your laser just to create a really deep pocket for burning, inlay pockets. But you got to know your laser, because you need, and when you're doing pockets, you got to take your kerf into consideration. And also when you go to do your inlay, because it's a whole learning process. And it's a great way to get familiar with the kerf of your laser. And not all woods have the same kerf. And I just showed you there on that one. One part of that maple burned nice and clean. The other part just burned away. Didn't want to cut through it all. So it's a learning curve to figure it out. But yeah, pockets and inlays and pockets like that was really cool. Where did you get the maple? I bought it from a plaque manufacturer, and I bought and that's another thing that I'm trying to do. V, it's like the I don't have them here. Yeah, I do. I got one right here. I'm contacted a lot of manufacturers, and I'm buying up a bunch of inventory. I bought up a whole bunch of the crystal hearts, and I got bunches of them here, and I'm selling them at $10 a piece plus the freight to ship them out. Several people have contacted me, said they wanted them, and they want, suggested, buying 4s, $40. That way you got 4 that you can really do. I'll provide the settings that I used, because this is it's not a living thing. It's not wood. So it's not going to be subject to the same environmental issues or environmental
the surroundings aren't going to affect it and the laser as much as it would. I share you my settings and recommendations, and you probably wouldn't even have any waste. But 4 pieces shipped was like $50. No, I took me up on them. These sell for $60 a piece all day long. You can search for engraved, crystal pieces on Amazon. They're $60 and $80, and some of them as high as $90. So at $10 a piece, that's cheap. And I'll sell them to you. You send me an email, say, hey, I want some hearts, or you want some of the blanks. The blanks, I think they're going to be like the 5x7 maple blanks are going to be probably $4 a piece. But got some reservations about those now after tonight's inability to cut through these. So before I really promote those out there, I need to get familiar with, I've got a bunch of them. And I want to see if these were the outliers, because I had no problems doing these. So maybe it was just 2 that were random pieces. Let's see here. And just for giggles, comment banners, take that one down. For anybody that's new to the stream, if you've got a question and or comment, there, put 3 question marks in front of your question to let me see that it'll jump out at me in the stream. And if it's just a comment and you want me to acknowledge it and put the exclamation points in front of it, that helps me see it in that whole thread of comments. Yep. He definitely achieved that goal with his Rolly. Yes. And yep. And I think you might have posted that before I had a chance. hobowithwood.com/Rolly is my Rolly link. I wonder if Jason will bring inlay function into Lightburn in 1.8. I don't know what you're referring to there, Chris, as far as an inlay function. I've seen that in Dimitri's library from Rolly, that he has some inlay settings in his library already. But those libraries need to be treated with a grain of salt. They need to be a springboard where you start from, because your woods are going to vary. Like, there's a perfect example. That's 2 pieces of maple with 2 very extremely different results. So art or cutting libraries need to be a springboard and where you maybe can start testing. But I strongly recommend doing, full-blown tests to find out what will do what with it. I do this on every piece of material I get in before I even start, because I don't want to waste my time with and get undesirable results. All right, question. All right, Jim's question. Any thoughts on the new Rolly? What does tumblers best? Well, it depends on the tumbler. Depends on the material. The infrared, and guys, I know this much. I don't know that much on technology, but I'll share with you what I understand and believe to be correct. All right, the diodes that we have here, the 10 watt, 20 watt, 30 watts, they are a blue diode, and they function at a certain wavelength. They have, and I can Google it and find it, but make up some random number, 1065 or whatever, something nanometers. They have a particular wavelength, and they're blue in color, and that's why you can see those. But the infrared is just that. It's infrared. You can't see it with the naked eye, and it's on a different wavelength. And that different wavelength, and it's only 2.5 watts, but that different wavelength will interact with the materials differently than the blue diode laser does. And it can actually interact with materials that the blue diode will not interact with. I think he said on there he's tested it on platinum, silver. He said you can do gold, but he hasn't tested it on gold. And I was about to pull the trigger and order one. But I went back to this, and I just said, right now, I just need just be still. I don't need to do anything right now. I just need to, with everything that's going on in my world, I just need to just be still. So I didn't pull the trigger and order one. At the time, I think there was only another couple of dozen of them left, if that, in the US. But I was like, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait. But if you're doing stainless steel tumblers like this, and these are all, and you guys don't know, I might have been kidding about when I test. I say I test. Look at all these different tests that I've got on this one tumbler, trying to find out different settings. And this was done with different settings, different parameters, some with the Brilliance marking spray, some without. Changing the oh fudge, I forget now, $1.20 or you can change. I don't know if you. I used Rolly's stainless settings, and I got one result. But when you rub your fingers across it, you can actually feel the indentations from where the heat distorted the stainless steel, because it took so much heat getting into that stainless to make its mark that it deformed the surface. With the laser marking spray, it did not do any deformation, but it didn't have. I didn't have the right speed and settings dialed in. More testing required. But with the infrared, I think it would yield a better result and can produce different results than what you would get with the diode. That's my understanding on how that all works. And I think someone might have just seen something about this. Larry mentioned it. Because they are different wavelengths, this blue protective covering stops or prevents any damaging light coming through from the laser, but it will not stop the infrared. The wavelength of the infrared laser, this is not a protective shield at all. And your protective glasses, doubling up and putting glasses on, and that ain't gonna help you. So you need to have infrared glasses if you're buying the and if again here, I don't know. You got to have infrared protective glasses. If not, then you operate it in a room with nobody in the room. But it's not going to have the same safety rating as the regular diode does. And that was I want to thank you, Larry, for bringing that up and helping remind me of that. You will need glasses. So you're gonna if you've ordered and you know what? Again, I don't know. When you buy the infrared laser module, they might come with glasses because the Rolly came with some glasses. I don't know. I don't know if that's, but if not, definitely buy some infrared glasses rated for infrared. All right, John's question: doing an inlay today with my Omtech works great. There is an inlay function that has male female from one vector. Okay. Would it have made a difference if you cut the maple on both sides? It might have helped produce a more uniform cut, but that's not what you want to do. You don't want to be in that situation, because then you get, even if a slight variance with a quarter of a millimeter between one side and the other or less, when I'm cutting, I want to cut through from one side. And which wattage would you recommend on the Rolly? I would like to have one in an enclosure, so hard to get repeat items when my honeycomb moves. Yes, absolutely. I would recommend the 1030 switchable. These really dark black letters, that was done with the 10 watt. That wasn't done with the 30 watt. I cannot get that same degree of, I can't get that same coloration from the 30 watt that I do from the 10 watt. In fact, that's what these two are. I've got these two side by side. Whenever I got this material in, one of them is at a 10 watt. This one's at 10 watt. This is at 30 watt. And you see the difference. The speeds and powers were the same from 1,000. No, there wasn't. From 1,000 to 18,000, and this one was from 600 to 18,000. But see, the 30 watt just had a lot more burning away of the material, and I wasn't getting a really good, clean, dark, crisp burn. But there at that 600 and that sweet spot was about 15% power. It was just a really dark, crystal, clean cut and burn, but I didn't feel like I was getting the same result from the 30 watt. Now, I could have slowed because that was at 600. I could have slowed the 30 watt down to even less than 1,000 and maybe started to produce a similar. But you get the spot size on the 10 watt laser is smaller, so you get better detail. And so I recommend the 1030, so you can work on your detail. And my experience so far is I can get a deeper, darker color without too much hassle. So we talked about that. And I'm gonna get through these questions, but I want to get back to this design too. 2 watt seems puny. It does, but 5 watt is near weapons grade in the infrared realm. Yeah, the 2 watt seems like, oh wow, we were just talking about 30 watt, and I couldn't cut through some of this maple, but because of the difference, the way they interact with the material differently, the infrared versus the diode, you don't need as much power to accomplish some things that you can accomplish with the 10 watt. So it's not always about the power or the size. It's how you use it. Yeah, different grades of stainless will also have different results. Yep, you got different qualities of stainless steel, and you'll get different results from it. And we won't go into that. That's another squirrel. All right. So V says she ordered a 1030. What was that? Fire up that CO2 for cutting that maple. Yeah, I ain't even turned that thing on in months. I need to find somebody. I've got a few people here local I've been trying to sell it to. Okay, so let's jump back over here to this design and talk about why I did what I did and where I put the holes for the jump ring and why I put them how. And I've got 6mm jump rings and 10mm jump rings here in stock that I use for my earrings. And it just so happens that the 10mm jump ring for this one worked out perfectly. But after about the third or fourth one, I was like, I got a better idea. I think I'm going to like it better than I did the jump rings. And I did. I liked it better. So we'll talk about that too. All right, so let's jump back over here to Lightburn and dive into this design and why I did what I did when I did what I did. And I left out the let's do it this way. I left out the jump ring holes. We're going to do that too. So I had a 5x7 piece of material. Well, V, if you understand now, that's good, because I'm hopefully other people have helped you understand, because hopefully I take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm not a technical guru. I know enough to be dangerous. All right, so my material is 5x7mm. And when I'm cutting out my material, I don't want to be so close to the edge that I got to worry about the laser getting too close. So the first thing I did was I just came in and did an immediate offset of 2mm inward. Do not delete the original. Just come in 2mm inward and say, okay. And that gave me a 2mm buffer around the entire perimeter. So I'm like, okay, now let's work within that design. And I want to make this thing as big as I can possibly make it. So that right there is 123 millimeters wide. So now, and because this one, and I'm going to show you the other version of this and what I did with it, but I want to show you this and you guys be able to recreate this concept on your own without problem. And I can answer any questions you got involving this particular design. Then you can say, okay, now I get that. Now I can start coming up with my own concepts and different things. If you don't have a piece of 5x7 maple, what have you got? You know, and how big do you want it to be? This is just what I was doing to maximize that material and waste nothing. So that was my overall work area. It's going to be 123 millimeters wide. So I'm going to draw out a perfect circle and tell it to be 100. Let's lock the aspect ratio this time and tell it 123 millimeters. Put it on a toolpath. And I'm going to hold my shift key and select that inner offset and tell it to center vertically and align to the top. Now that's 2 millimeters from the top edge of the material, 2 millimeters from either edge of the material because it's the exact same width as that inner offset. So now I've got two tool paths to work with. I know how wide it can possibly be, and I know the size, the largest possible size of the outermost radius. So now I got to figure out what else I need to know. And what do I know? I know my material is 6 millimeters thick, and this is a personal preference. There's no science behind this. It's just what I think aesthetically looks good and provide probably some of the most strength. When I'm going to do a cutout like this outer perimeter here, and another thing, if you're not aware of, if you go to start working with real hardwoods, hardwoods will cleave or break along the grains, and some of the woods are worse than others. Walnut is especially sensitive to wanting to, the thinner it is, it'll just crack along the grains real easy. I'm out of focus a little bit. Let's focus me up here. No, that's, yeah, it looks a little bit better. Let's try again. I might need to get a better camera. As soon as I let go of it, it goes out of focus. And you guys don't really care about seeing this pretty face. But anyway, so I think about the thickness of the material. And this outer ring of this cutout is its most vulnerable point from about there and there up. And since I'm working with 6 millimeter thickness of my material, then in thinking from a structural standpoint, having the cross section of this being a square, I think it's going to have its most integrity. It's going to be its strongest, because that way there's no one angle that's going to be any less or any weaker than the other, at least the way my mind works. So that's why I do a 6 millimeter offset that I'm about to do, is because I want it's 6 millimeters wide. So I want a 6 millimeter offset. So that cross section of the weakest point is square. And that's why I used 6 millimeters. And so that's selected. I'll come back in here to an offset. Oh, and I got too many things selected. Let's get just the circle. An offset of that, and I'm going to come inwards, and I want to do 6 millimeters this time. And say, okay. So that's my outer perimeter. And here's the inner perimeter of that cut of the arch. Now I need to create my disc that I'm going to cut out. And for this, I did an offset. I didn't want to do another 3 millimeter or 6 millimeter offset, because I wanted to have a tighter fit and look. To me, that just didn't look as good. See that big 6 millimeter gap and then a 6 millimeter gap. So I only did half of that distance. I said 3 millimeters. I said, okay. And that gives some room for that disc to move around within the design and not have too much interference with the outer structure. And that's why I come up with a 6 millimeter offset and a 3 millimeter offset. But there is the basic shape of the upper radius and the disc itself. Now I need to figure out my slots and tabs. Well, the one thing that I know is I have a 6 millimeter piece of wood. So the height of that is going to be 6 millimeters. As far as the length of it goes, if you're going to do the pockets and hide it, it's irrelevant on its spacing and where you place them and all that. You just want to get them, centrally located in the center of the piece. But you don't have to do the pockets. You can do a complete cutout. But if you do a complete cutout, it's going to affect the size of your overall piece, because your tabs are going to need to be total 6 millimeters instead of the 3 that I did. So you're going to lose 3 millimeters on your overall height. Not a big deal. And it might be less aggravating, and it might even be quicker on the laser to cut them out instead of back and forth creating a pocket, engraving a pocket in there. And if you're going to do a cutout and you're going to put your name or logo or brand or whatever on the base, depending on what the size of your logo is, you may need to take that into consideration on where you're going to place your cutouts. So when I'm designing, it's almost like playing chess. You've got to be thinking 4 or 5 moves ahead of it in your whole. Otherwise, you're going to be going, oh man, undo. And I do that still, but I try to do it as the least amount as possible. So back over here, and I just now seen somebody did a donation. What was it? Oh, Tom. Bless you, sir. Thank you. That is awesome. Tom, $50 super sticker. That is greatly appreciated, sir. Greatly appreciated. Now back to Rolly. Back to a Lightburn. So I know what my height of that needs is going to be, the thickness of my material, 6 millimeters. Now I went, because I am doing pockets, I just went with unlock aspect ratio. I just went with 25 millimeters and did 2 of them. And my first one I did 3, but it didn't need it. So I just did 2. And I set up my move. If you go up to your gears and then go to, if you have 1.7, they've got these new menus in here now. And so you have to go to units and grids. And here's where you set up your shape move increments. And I use control arrow as my smallest one. I use arrow as my biggest one, and then shift arrow as the middle movement. And I've got mine set at 25 mil, 1 mil, and 1/4 mil. So I've got this one at 25 and 6. I control D, duplicate it. And now if I just use my arrow key one time, that moves at 25 mil, move it again. There's another 25 mil. They're equally distanced from one another. I can grab those and group those because they're oriented in the right spatial distance from one another. They're not where I need them to be in the design, but in relation to one another, they're perfect. So I'm going to group them. Now, I need to figure out the size of my base. And I take a lot of things into consideration when I'm figuring up my base size. How tall is it? How top heavy is it going to be? And I want it to be, I don't want somebody to, accidentally bump it and knock it over. It needs to be, pretty stable, and that took a little effort to knock it over. What I do, or I don't have a mathematical, I use a little bit of experience, in the past, what has worked. And with this design, what I went with was 3 times the amount of the thickness of the material. So show you, because that was a little bit convoluted, huh? So right here, if I draw out a rectangle, I'm gonna come over here and put it over here. And I know that my material is 6 millimeters. And I changed that to 6 millimeters. Not that way, that was 60. 6, there we go. So if that's gonna be my inner slot, I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm just going to draw it out a little bit so you can see it. The one thing that I know that's an absolute is I know what the width of that piece is going to be. The maximum width is that inner offset, which is 123 mil. So I can come over here to my base, or what will be my base, and tell it I want the width to be 123 millimeters. All right, that's a known. That's done. How wide do I want it to be? Well, I want it to come out 3 times the width of the material in each direction. So if it's 6 millimeters, I want to come out 18 this way and 18 this way. 18 and 18 is 36, plus 6 is 42 millimeters. So change my height to 42 mil. And I'm going to come over here, and I don't need this. I was just showing you that so you can see how I fitted the math. So I'm going to take that and put it over here and align it to the center and the bottom. And now I can select this and put it in the center of those. Now that base is the right size. Now, do I want to change, add a little radius to it? Yep, I do. I'm going to come over here to my radius tool, and I'm going to put a 6 millimeter radius on this corner. This corner. I'm on. There we go. Got to get right on that node. And selector tool. So now that base is designed. That's the shape and size of my base. Now I've still got this main rectangle out here that's 2 millimeters from the edge of the entire design. So I also now know that this is 42 millimeters. And what I didn't do a minute ago when I did the math to figure out the new overall height is I forgot to subtract the additional 3 millimeters. So that base I just did the math on is 6 millimeters wide plus 18 on either side. It's 36 plus 6 is 42 mil. And now I need to allow for another 3 millimeter tab that's going to be on attached to the top. So 45 mil. I need to subtract 45 mil from that overall height of that piece. So if I select that original square and I make sure that my anchor point is at the top center, that'll keep the top of that rectangle right where it's at. And I come over here to the height and I say subtract 45. Now it jumped that up with a 3 millimeter gap in between the base and what will be the artwork. Now I can take those two, Control D, duplicate them, move them up there. I just moved my arrow key up one time and that jumped 25 millimeters up. And like before, I'm not going to worry about, I can't, there's always another way. You can do this so many different ways. I can change the size of that to 3 millimeters, make sure they're positioned right, and then weld them in. But you don't need to do all that. Since I've already centered these, they know exactly where they are, where they need to be, and oriented in spatial orientation to the position of the design. So now all I need to do is hold my control button, select this one, and weld those together. And if you want to go to the trouble, you can come in here and now measure that. You can see it's 2 millimeters. So now you can go back to your tools, resize slots and selection, change your tab height. Now, if you notice there at slot depth, it's recognizing that as a slot, and we don't need that. We need the tabs, and they need to be 3 millimeters, and apply. And that jumps those down and say, okay. And now with that still selected, I'm going to go right to my node editing tool, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the letter M for middle. And that now disrupts Lightburn's logic, and it will no longer recognize that as a slot. It's only going to see the tabs. So if I go right back into tools, resize slots and selection, change my old material to 3, see, it's not recognizing those slots. That slot is gone. Go to tab height. It recognizes the tabs. So, okay. So now I've got my, I've got the overall dimensions of my base and where the bottom is going to fit in. Now, if I've got my tabs welded to this rectangle and I'm not, how'd I get that? Well, we go right back over to our ruler tool, our measurement tool, not our ruler tool. And I realize that there might be a few of you out there that were raised Catholic and maybe even went to private Catholic school, and the nuns might have used those rulers to wrap your knuckles one too many times, and you just have a fear of rulers. But you need to embrace the measurement tool in Lightburn and get familiar with this thing, because there's so much information in it. It can make your design work so much easier. So if I select my measurement tool, right now when you see it, it comes up, it's blank. Now, we went over a lot of this in the last live stream, but one thing I didn't talk about was these here, the arc radius and the arc center, and the perimeter length. And we're going to look at a lot of these things tonight that we didn't work with last week. So if I come over here to this first circle I created, that's the first toolpath. In fact, I need to, there we go. I did have moved it right. All right. Here it shows me I've got an arc radius of 61.5 millimeters. 61.5. Now I want to come here and here. And if you notice, okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Here it's showing you it doesn't go from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. It's going from 9 o'clock to about 9:30, and that picks up at 9:30 and goes to about 11:30 on the clock face. It's not going like here. That one's going from 9 to 12. And that's showing 61.5. But even though this is not going from 9 to 12, that 41.3 that show, and I can't show you because I scroll over that. But right there, it's showing the arc radius is 41.3. Well, that is the arc radius of the entire, that's the entire circle is that arc radius. That one is 61.5. So don't worry if it doesn't give you a full quarter, perimeter. Once you select that, whatever that arc radius is, that's the radius of that circle, or the arc radius. So go back to your radius tool, and it was 61.5 mil. And I can come up here to this circle, or that rectangle, the original 2 millimeter offset, click on that one and click on that one, and you can see it lines up perfect with that circle. And now I can go to my selector tool, select this circle, the original toolpath, the original circle I drew, and delete it. And there you have that piece that's finished. Now we got to do our holes for our jump ring. But before I go into that, I'm going to go back here and look at any comments and questions and see if I've blown anybody's mind or if anybody got lost. Could you have done this another way? Absolutely. Why? Because there's always another way. You could have done it with Boolean tools. You could have done it with scissors. You could have done it a bunch of different ways. But I've been trying to show you guys how to utilize that measuring tool at its, for more than a tape measure. So let's go back up here. Boy, I sure do hope I marked what I was doing. Nope, I didn't mark it, but I can see here. There's that. There's that. We talked about V. Talked about that. Talked about that. Where I should have marked my spot. Talked about that. Talked about that. And I did. Shout out. Thank you, Tom. There we go. Here's a question. Will my Sculpt Fun rotary work with the Rolly? I have no idea. I don't know. Here's what I can safely assume. And you know what happens when you assume, right? Assumption one. From what I've seen with a lot of the lasers, a lot of the rotaries share the same little 2-prong pin connection or whatever it is. Four-prong connection. I think they're all they may be all the same, maybe. So maybe it'll plug in. But there are things about the rotary that Leo has done with the pin location. Your Sculpt Fun, I think it was. Yeah, your Sculpt Fun rotary is not going to have the pin locations that allow you to place the rotary in a specific location within the laser every single time, the Rolly every single time. Just like the honeycomb has got a fixed position and it's locked in place, there are pins in the bed of the bottom of the Lasermatics that have locator pins. So you can place that rotary in the same position every time. And he has pre-programmed into your machine settings a start position so that it will go to the same start position, home position, when you put the rotary in there. You'll lose all of that. Will it plug up and can you make it turn? Maybe. I don't know. Not sure. Don't know, but I wouldn't. The reason you're spending the money for the Rolly and getting the Rolly is for its precision and its repeatability and the craftsmanship, and all that's built in down to and including the rotary. So I strongly recommend, and because the rotary's dimensions, physical dimensions, even if you got it to work with the pin location somehow, it may not have the exact same head length or width or whatever. So I wouldn't bother. I'd spend a few bucks and get the rotary if you're going to be using it and religiously, and you like it, and you like the dependability and the repeatability. And plus, think about if you've got a design, a monogram, that all you have to do is edit and put somebody's name in that. You've already got all the artwork. You just got to add the name, and you've saved it, and it's in your rotary monogram files. You open it up, you import it into Lightburn, you do your edits, set up the rotary, put everything in, clamp your cup in, and send the job. You don't have to check anything else again because it's going to the same spot every time, always. And you couldn't do that with any of the other rotaries. So get the Rolly rotary. Get the Rolly rotary. Questions. And this might be for everybody. Last question, LOL. Does the IR engrave small? Like the placing. I don't think anybody out there has an IR yet. But can it do small pieces? Yes. Easily? I've done on some of them. I haven't done it on this one. I've done some the inner part of a ring. I've engraved the inner pieces of the rings. And it's some tricky finagling that you have to do to get it focused right, to get the angle right on the piece, because you're not having when I do the inner part of the rings, it's not horizontal, because if your laser shooting straight down, now it's on the top surface. So you got to angle the ring so it gets past the top surface and shoots down to the inner piece of that. But you can't have it at too sharp of an angle, so it distorts your letters and they look funky. It's tricky, but if you're doing just a top surface, yes, you can do that. And because it's only a 2.5 watt and it's going to be infrared, it's going to be very small spot size. I can't remember what I read it. It's going to be at least as small or smaller than a 10 watt diode. I'm pretty sure. Looking for question marks and comments. And I see a whole lot, and if I've gone past yours and I'm not acknowledging it, like here, Chris has got a comment. The Sculpt Fund does not have the pins for position. Yes, there you go. And I think I covered that. But if you want me to acknowledge your comment, you need to have those 3 exclamation points, and if it's a question, 3 question marks in front of your comment and or question. And if I've gone past it, here we go. You cannot beat Rolly's customer service either. No, sir. They have got some of the best customer service out there. I'm not officially associated with Rolly, other than the fact that I'm a huge believer in them. I've got 2 machines. I got the original MK2 plus the XW. I had the Mark 1, and I gave that one away. And I gave that one away because it was gifted to me to help sponsor the channel when I was affiliated with the other channel. But I've bought these, and because I have done some endorsing of the product, Leo did give me a discount on this, but he did not give it to me. I bought this one, and I was going to buy my infrared laser too until I decided I'm just going to wait. I'll just wait. I'm not going to do anything yet. But while I'm not officially part of Rolly's customer service, I am in Rolly Automation's official Facebook group, and I don't monitor it. I look at it every time I log into Facebook. And if I see people with questions or problems that I can help, I'll reach out and help. And I have connected with several folks here in this media where we can get on and live stream with each other, and I can help walk them through some of the questions that I can help with. I'm not a technical guy. A lot of the problems people I try to help them with, they're struggling with why they can't get the laser to do something because they're not using the right settings or techniques. Okay, so now let's jump in here and look at the placement. Oh, I just seen a question pop up before I jump away. I'm looking at a Monport GP30. Anybody have any thoughts on the Monport? Good or bad? Customer service is the first thing you should look at with any laser. And I'm not speaking any ill of Monport. I had an X-Full, and I call it an X-Full. That was my first laser. I had the most horrible experience with that piece of equipment for many reasons. One, it was because of my own limitations. It was my first laser. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm a quick study, but compounding my inexperience and lack of knowledge with the limitations of that laser, and it was pretty substandard too. It didn't have any limit switches. It didn't have any, didn't have a fixed laser or honeycomb. It didn't have a lot of stuff. It was a very entry level beginner laser, and you get what you pay for. And no, I take that back. You get a heck of a lot more than what you pay for with the Rolly. But every time I reached out to the customer service with my problems, I never got a reply. Never got a response from anybody. And after I finally gave up on the machine and gave it away, I gave it to somebody here in town. They might be in the stream tonight. But I gave that laser away. A year after I had posted my last request for help, I get a reply from X-Full's customer service wanting to know if they can help me. A year later. What good is that? You got a problem. You need an answer now. And with the Rolly, you're going to find that you get an answer from either someone like myself, that other guy, and or Dimitri or Leo. Somebody will reach out to you through the Rolly Automation Facebook group and try and help you and assist you. But if it's something truly a mechanical issue that's beyond just user input, if it's not a cockpit error and it's a true issue with either freight damage or anything else, you're going to get a pretty rapid reply and response from Rolly. And a lot of times you'll get a response from Leo. Leo is in that Facebook Rolly Automation group, and he's the owner of the company. You're not dealing with some salesperson. He's the owner of the company. He's the mastermind. So what I would recommend if you're entertaining buying any other laser, this is something that I did not do. Before you pull the trigger and buy that laser, reach out to their customer support. Reach out to their customer support with some random question. You might even already know the answer to it. If it's a diode laser, reach out to that customer support team and just say, hey, will this diode laser cut clear, and this is a tongue twister for me, clear acrylic? It won't. They don't know that you know the answer already, but send an email to their customer support. Can I cut clear acrylic with this diode laser? And if you don't get an answer within 24 to 48 hours, you might not want to consider it, because if it's 96 hours or a week later, if you've got a true technical problem and you can't get an answer from them, that's my advice, is check their customer support. At one time, I think the laser you're at and inquiring about had decent customer support. Then it got tanked. Then I think it kind of rebounded, and then it tanked. So just check with your customer support. All right. In fact, Chris is just saying to you, Michael, if you didn't see it, customer support is almost non-existent from what I've been hearing lately, and you need to know which controller is Lightburn compatible. Yeah, not all of the lasers are Lightburn compatible. And same thing with OTOR, rotten customer service. And X Tool hates Lightburn. Total turn off for me. Yeah, there's a lot of the considerations. Is the laser X Tool? Is the X Tool? Is the laser Lightburn compatible? And then above, first and foremost, what is your customer support like? I don't care if you spend $200 for a laser. If you get one of those, and it's more than $200, the little cheap kiosk, little 10-watt kiosk I did a demo on, that thing does great for very small specific jobs. And if you're going to do remote, jobs at a fair or something, and you want to do just slate coasters with it. It's not for cutting. You don't want it for cutting. It's just for marking. And I use it for doing the dog tags and for doing the slate coasters. And I would probably even entertain, if I was going to get back into the shows, I would buy two kiosks. I would have two of the little 10-watt kiosk lasers set up in my booth, so I can be running two jobs and cut out twice the work in the same amount of time. And because they're cheap enough, but they are a cheap diode laser from Genmitsu that does a good job, but I would never recommend it for doing projects like this. It's not what it's made for. So what do you want? What is your intent for the laser? What do you want to do with the laser? What's the customer support like? I think you were wanting to go with a more powerful laser. I thought initially, and that's why I got the CO2. I thought I wanted a more powerful laser so I could do more work. I can generate more finished product in the same amount of time that I can get 10 in the time I can do one on a diode. But it ain't the same quality. And I want to have I want to be known for my quality of my work. As much time as I put into my designs, my actual finished pieces, I want them to be like furniture grade, top notch stuff. And I don't think you're going to be able to generate that. You can generate production work with the CO2, but precision, quality, high class, nice. It's not for me. Not for me. But there's the right laser for every job, because there was a job that I thought I was going to get, and at one time I was going to buy three, and I was going to get the I forgot the name of it now. They're out of Florida. But I was going to buy three big CO2s to do this one job that I was contracting. I didn't get it. I didn't buy it. Will IR cut clear acrylics? I seen, that's from Kevin. I seen some indications from Leo that it will mark and or engrave on clear materials to some degree. And Armstead says, yes, it will. I don't know how, at what speeds and power, how quick will it do it? But yes, the infrared will interact with that clear material where the blue diode will not. But how effective is its cutting ability? I don't know. All right, so now let's jump over here and look at this jump rings, how to position the holes for it. And I'll mark my spot this time. All right, you got to know a few things before you start putting in your jump ring holes. What size are your jump rings? Not the overall diameter, but the diameter of the actual metal of your jump rings. The ones I've been using are 1 millimeter thick, and I have 6 millimeter overall diameter and 10 millimeter overall diameter. But I'm going to show you another trick. Besides using just in fact, I've even got the links. If you go over to hobowithwood.com and look at the supplies page, hobowithwood.com. And if you look at the supplies page, there is a list of a lot of things that I use in the shop all the time. And I've got the jump rings in there that I use, and you can buy them in bulk and they don't cost half a cent. All right, I'll come back to that. I see other questions pop up, but I mark my spot. We'll come back to them. So you got to know the dimensions of your jump ring before you start placing your holes. My cross section of my jump ring is 1 millimeter thick. So I want to create two holes in my material, and where am I going to place them and what size are they going to be? I'm holding my shift key and I'm going to draw out a perfect circle, and I'm going to tell it to be, lock my aspect ratio. I'm going to go with 2 millimeters. So I've got one, and I'm going to tell it to align to the center and to the top of that. So that, obviously you don't want it right there at the top. But where does it need to be? Well, I'm going to take this, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to come up here. I'm holding my control and arrow button that was 1/4 millimeter at a time jumping up there. And I want to put this to where it's going to be creating the least amount, the weakest. I don't want to have too close to this edge or too close. I want it centered up there. How do I do that? Well, I know this is 6 millimeters, so I'm going to draw out a square. And I'm going to tell it to be 6 millimeters, not 66. And then I'm going to line it to the top and center. And then I'm going to take and select that circle and tell it to center up in that. That's perfectly placed within the center, so I don't have to worry about one side or the other being any weaker than the other. Now, where does this need to be in relation to that? Well, I can go far as down in there as I want to. You don't want to be close to the edge. You don't want it to be weak. But I'm also all about aesthetics. I want it to look good. So I'm going to do the same distance from the edge of the top circle for the bottom circle. And if I come over here and use my measuring tool and come right here in the middle of this circle, I'll get that double X crosshair looking thing. That's the very center of that circle. Now I'm going to hold my shift button and I'm going to click on my left mouse button and draw straight down. Holding click will make it draw a straight line. And I'll come right there and I can see that it's 3 millimeters. And that's what I expected it to be because I told it to go to the center of a 6 millimeter piece. So from the center of that circle to there is 3 millimeters. It's a 2 millimeter circle. So that's should be 2 millimeters from the edge. If I come there, I get the double crosshairs, hold shift and come down. Yep, there we go. It's 2 millimeters from the top. So now I just come up here and I look at my movement tool again. My shift arrow key is 1 millimeter. So I come up here, select that, hold my shift button, and 1, 2. There we go. That is now that's the same distance from the edge of that as it is there. Now, what size jump ring am I going to need? Go back to my measuring tool, come to the center right there, hold shift and draw a straight line down to the center right there. And that's 9 millimeters from the center to center. So if I come over here and I draw out a perfect circle, holding the shift key, and I'm going to tell it to be 9 millimeters. And now I'm going to select that one and select that one and group those. Oh, not bullseye them, group them. Now I'm going to take this big one and hold my shift button, select that, and tell it to bullseye that. And that's going to place it right there. So that's bisecting that lower circle in the middle and the top circle in the middle. But my jump ring is not that singular line. It is 1 millimeter in diameter. So now I'm going to do an offset in both directions, 0.5 millimeter, delete the original and say, okay. And there's the size of my jump ring. There's my jump ring. That's exactly what I need to make that work. Group that. So now when that jump ring is placed in here, it's going to orient this inner disc precisely where it needs to be. So there's not a larger gap up here than there is over here, or actually it'd just be down at the bottom. It's going to hang, it wouldn't be left or right unless you were off center. But by doing that jump ring math that way, I was able to guarantee when I put that in place, it's going to have a perfect spacing around the top as it does the bottom. pretty slick, huh? Let's see. Yeah, did you miss the discussion? No, you did not miss it. I'm just now getting there. Just got there. Just got there. Yeah, Dale. Dale says Leo told him that IR would mark the glass or would not mark the glass without a marking spray. Go back and look at the website. Oh, no, you said glass? Okay, yeah, not glass, but clear acrylic. I think it will engrave clear acrylic and cut clear acrylic. I don't know how well it's going to cut or how thick it can cut, but I think if you look at the website and the information on there, I think it says that it will mark some of the clear acrylics. But again, I don't have any first-hand experience with IRs, just what I've been reading on them and what I read on his page. Okay. All right. So there's that. Now I'm gonna mark this, and I love seeing this. I love seeing Richard's got a big old 7 in there, and we got lots of 5s and 4s, and if you guys, any of you guys are new here tonight in the stream at this point, the whole reason for these numbers is that's where people are indicating these are how many new things that they've learned during the stream. Craig says, "Hey, I've learned 3 new things watching this." So looks like most of what Craig's come up with new tonight was just how to position these holes for the jump rings. But I'm expecting to see a whole lot more numbers now after I show you these next few steps, because I'm not buying jump rings. I'm creating my jump rings, and I'm going to use a tool in Lightburn that will tell me exactly what I need exactly the information I need to create my own jump rings. I got a cardboard cookie to the first person that can guess in the comments what tool I'm going to use to get the exact information I need to create my own jump rings. Anybody want to take a guess? Come on now. Cardboard cookie to the first person that gets it right. Yes. There we go. The measuring tool. Let's see here. Bob's World says, please supply a link for the jump rings if possible. I need them right away. I was going to make some out of cheap Christmas ball hangers. Well, what I'm getting ready to show you may have you rethinking that altogether. But I mentioned it earlier. If you go to my website, hobowithwood.com, which is scrolling right down there at the bottom, go to my supplies page, and there are a link to several jump rings that I purchase. But watch this. Mark my spot. And we're going to come back over here. All right, so there's my jump ring. I'm going to pull over here for a second. And now I'm going to go to my measuring tool. I'm going to ungroup it, actually, and go to my measuring tool. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on this outermost piece. And now if I look up here, it gives me all this information. There's my arc radius. It's 5 mil. The arc center, angles, all again. But right over here, perimeter length, 31.43 millimeters. It also tells me my width and height is 10 millimeters. So if you were going to need to purchase jump rings, that right there tells you you would want to get a 10 millimeter jump ring. But I got tired of messing with my jump rings. My perimeter length is 31.43 millimeters. 31.43 millimeters. That's perimeter length. So for those who don't remember your geometry, that's 31.4 millimeters around the outer perimeter of the outer side of that circle. So if I was to draw a straight line and tell that to be 31.43 or whatever it was. Oh, I had the wrong thing there selected. A straight line, that's how long that piece would stretch out to be. So how does that help me? I got a great big old huge roll of copper wire. And I'm planning to use this in some future designs and some ideas where I'm going to be inlaying copper into wood projects, and not wood inlays, but copper inlays. And that's going to be pretty cool. But this spool of copper is the same 1 millimeter diameter. I know what the overall length is. It needs to be 31.4 millimeters, 31.2. I got a set of calipers. I pull my calipers out to 32 millimeters. And then I just take and I lay that copper wire in between my calipers. And then I start to flex it. And it creates a bend point that I need to be right at 32 millimeters. I take my side cutters, clip that off. Where are my cutters? Here they are. Then I look for something round. My paintbrush right here, my handy dandy paintbrush handle, pretty darn close to what I need it to be. I can take that and then just take and start wrapping my copper wire in a circle. And because it's copper, it bends pretty easy. I've got that wrapped around that paintbrush. Those ends are a little tougher to do because they get a little tight. Then I just take my handy dandy little pecker and just start tapping that down. Easy peasy. And I've just created the exact size jump ring that I need for my piece of artwork. So now you don't have to worry about placing those jump ring holes in your material at a specific placement so they will work with the jump rings that you have, because you can make your own jump rings. And being this copper is a lot more friendly to work with than some of those jump rings. And some of those jump rings are actually just silver plated copper. Some of them are not. But you can just take and flex that apart, open it up. You don't have a way you can see that. Open that up like that, slide it into place. And once you got it and rolled around and get both pieces hung in there, close it back up, and Bob's your uncle is done. That's pretty slick, wasn't it? Let's see. Acknowledge in the comment. I'm imagining this done with ball bearing swivels, so the centerpiece. Oh, yeah. So you can, yeah, that would be kind of cool. That'd be really cool. You need to do that. You need to do that and then share it with us. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. Yeah, I don't take any of the kerf into consideration for these pieces here. Only time I worry about kerf is whenever I'm doing boxes and or inlays. If I'm not doing slots and tabs that have got to be a really tight, super tight friction fit, I don't worry about the kerf. Because for random artwork pieces like this, it's not that big of a deal. For the size of the holes of the jump rings, not that big of a deal. Have you tried making rings out of wood? You would. I have, but you wouldn't be able to do. It wouldn't be. You couldn't split it. Something that small, a 10 millimeter piece, and you could split it, could have cut in it, but it's not going to flex with you enough to get in those pieces without just cracking. You could do it in two pieces and then glue them together, but then that went. And I like the look of the little piece of copper there. Cut out an inner and outer form of the wood. Yeah, to form it, you could do that. My just so happens my paintbrush works just fine. But yeah, you could create a form where you could wrap it up. There's always another way, and there's not a wrong way. It's what works for you, because you don't have this paintbrush laying on your workbench. You might have a screwdriver or a screwdriver handle that would work. It doesn't even need to be perfectly round. The screwdriver handles have got little indentations, but it's still going to have a circular overall shape. So you could do that with a screwdriver handle as long as it wasn't, a rectangular shape. If it was overall round, it would work. There's always another way. This live topic is exactly what I needed tonight. Thanks, Steve. Well, Bob, I'm happy to hear that. And I hear that a lot in the comments. It's like, that's exactly what I needed. I didn't know what I was going to do this week. I had no idea what I was going to do this week. I was struggling and floundering. And when I just quit, when I decided to be still, this was presented to me. And I said, okay, thank you. And it might have been because it's what you needed to hear. Don't know. Yep. Armstead says make a dowel rod the exact size you need. Wrap many turns. Yes. Yep. That'd be real cool if you had a 10 millimeter dowel rod. It was exactly what you needed to do. You just wrap, and then cut. And you got a whole bunch of them real quick. Bob says, hey, not your uncle. And Bob's your uncle. He says, I'm not your uncle. And I love this. Craig says, hey, all right, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there's a lot of, and that's, I really feel like right now we're down to 95 viewers, and I appreciate everybody that's here. We were up to around 120 or so. I've seen at one time. And a lot of those guys are gone. They just missed out on some really good stuff if they're designing their own material. I try to keep this as entertaining as possible. Hell, we're already at 2 hours. All right, and I think, but we've covered this up. All right. Is yeah, Craig, that would work too. I'm not gonna bother. Yeah, that would work too. All right. So does anybody have any questions or comments before we wrap this up? Anybody, did I leave anything out? Jim says, great job. We all need to be still. At times, that's the best thing you can do is nothing. Just nothing. Anybody? Did I leave anybody hanging? Is there anybody have a question that I did not address? I'll give it a few seconds before I wrap this up. I do appreciate everybody. I appreciate you all being here. And definitely going to watch the replay. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this, Peggy. I try to be entertaining and informative. I don't want to waste all y'all's time. And I don't have any giveaways or anything tonight, but I gave away all of my knowledge. I don't even have these designs up and ready. Oh, I know what. I forgot to show you, and these people that's jumped off, they gonna miss it. Nah. Because using the techniques that I did to come up with this design, check this out. This is what's going to be on the website. I'll put both of them up there. But what we just did tonight here, you've seen step by step on how to recreate it. You can do it yourself. Check this out. Let me get this going and get this and this. And I showed you earlier the beginnings of this. Instead of circular shape like that one, it's heart shaped. But check this out. Check out the whole design, the whole base. Switch. The heart is going to be just like that circle where it's going to be floating and inside that outer perimeter. But because this is 6 mil, initially this was going to come down here and it was going to have a 6 mil connection here and only a 6 mil connection here. That was going to be potentially a vulnerable or a weak spot. So I come back in here with 2 hearts on either side of it and welded it up and attached it to the base. And now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points of contact to reinforce that. And the heart actually dips down into that a little bit. I think that's going to be a really cool design when I finally get it to cut out and do the same thing with the base that I did before. That is going to be, I think, a wicked cool piece. What do y'all think about that concept? I'll have that on the website, hopefully before the end of the day tomorrow. But this design was given to me by simple prayer, meditation. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. What do I do? What do I need to do? I don't know what to do. And I just heard, be still. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with that? Be still. And I said, okay. And then it just hit me like a thunderbolt. Didn't know what to do with that maple. Grab that maple, come up with this concept because Bob needed a centerpiece. And being that it was able to be done on double-sided, it was perfect for a table centerpiece. But I want you to look even further. The fact that I put that on here and it's suspended in there, if you're not still, it shows. So it's also a barometer or a way to tell, are you still? If it's shaking and moving, you're not being still. Be still and know. So, guys, I thank you all for being here tonight. I do like all you guys. I wish everybody the happiest Thanksgiving. If you're across, Chris, any guys in here from New Zealand or Australia, I don't know if you guys, technically you don't do Thanksgiving because that was a North American thing, right? I imagine you have a day of thanks or a reason to get together and stuff your face. But I thank everybody for being here. Thank you for contributing to the stream. Thank you for keeping the comments going. Be sure and like, subscribe, share this with other folks. There's a lot of knowledge in here. I do share and give away all of my information for free. I asked the folks to consider becoming a patron. The patrons are what keep this channel going. Patreon.com/hobowithwood is where you go to become a patron and consider sponsoring me and the channel. The patrons are what keep my bills paid and allow me to be able to do this and educate you and entertain you and be your little dancing monkey. I'm happy to help folks anytime they need it, whether they're a patron or not. And I couldn't do it without my patrons. So please consider becoming a patron. Go over there and help keep this channel going and help me going, keep me going. So thank you all for being here. We're going to wrap this up. Have a good night. Have a good week. And enjoy your Thanksgiving. And you guys all have a wonderful, wonderful night. What's left of it and or morning, depending on where you're at. Happy Thanksgiving and see you guys If not in the next video, definitely in the next live stream. Don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be provided.